I'd like to share with you guys a decision that changed the entire course of my life. A decision that I made back in Melbourne that I'm very grateful for, and it's the reason I now live in Germany over a decade later. It's funny how we make these decisions and we don't realize they're going to change the entire course of our lives. So this decision was on a dance floor in Melbourne in around 2007. I was working in architecture at the time and I was burnt out. I'd been suffering anxiety. I got into architecture because it was creative, but I found myself just caught in high pressure deadlines, and it wasn't really creatively fulfilling me. But performing in bands and being a drummer was, which I was doing on the weekends. And my band at the time, we had a show on Brunswick Street in Melbourne. I can't remember the name of the place. I don't think it still exists, but we had a really good show. And, we were the type of band that put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but this show went well. And we were all kind of celebrating on a dance floor at the Nightcat in Fitzroy, which is actually a jazz club, which still exists in Melbourne. And we're on the dance floor, and the guitarist said, just out of nowhere, why don't we take this thing to London? We'd only been together 6 months as a band. We'd all been around the traps a bit in Melbourne. So we kind of knew we were going to perhaps hit like a glass ceiling, and we wanted to take it as big as possible. But I was also very much looking for, I knew I needed a major change. I needed to just kind of break everything I was doing and kind of take an extreme left turn to really start moving toward the life I wanted to live. So when the guitarist said it, he almost said what we'd already been thinking. And it's hard enough to come up with a band name, right? We'd had all sorts of arguments over that. But when it came to like this life-changing decision, we basically just agreed pretty simply right on the spot there on the dance floor. It came pretty easy. And within 3 months, our instruments were shipped to the UK, and we were in London doing our first show, which was kind of amazing, really, just to be in this venue in Camden, playing to this crowd. There were even some people from home there and stuff, and it was just like we made it happen. But it was a pretty relentless couple of years. It was an amazing couple of years doing these shows. But, when you're kind of broke artist in London, pretty hard to live comfortably. We were in a pretty wild share house where the previous Aussie tenants would like surf the ironing board down the stairs. You had to pump the toilet 40 times to get it to flush. There were blood spatters on the wall, I don't know what from, and my bedroom was tiny. It was as big as a broom cupboard. I could barely get in the door. Single bed with a rusty mattress, a rusty spring, I should say, poking through the mattress that I didn't want to like puncture a lung on. The cold London air coming in through an unsealed window. And I had a lot of time in that room on my own to reflect, and I just stepped out of the noise. And during that time, this was way before phone, like there was no doom scrolling at that time. And I started to realize there was a lot of stuff I'd kind of been running from. Trauma from childhood, loss, had lost my mother at 21. And I realized I started having to take a good hard look at these things as I was performing around London. And I think it's common that people go to London and sort of have to face the dark night of the soul, especially when you're living as a broke artist. Anyway, after 2 years, things unraveled and the band fell apart. We couldn't hold it together. Just the sheer grind of schlepping our instruments across town to gigs, and having sound check and then waiting 8 hours, and the creative tension that comes in bands. When the band fell apart, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, whether it was worth staying in London. And I met my ex, who was from Hamburg, and she introduced me to Hamburg. And cut a long story short, I ended up having we had our son here in Hamburg, but the relationship fell apart after a year, and I decided to stay in Germany. After a small stint at home, I decided to build a life here to be the best father I can be. It was a bonus. My son was born in a city that I love, which is Hamburg, and so kind of from that, I went back to Australia for a little bit to come back strong. As soon as I came back strong, right before his second birthday, after having to take some work in Australia, that's when I really started to build the life I wanted and move into a career in film, which is a whole nother story. To jump forward, I just took a walk with my son. He's nearly a teenager now, in the forest just before, and we just had this awesome walk through the forest, and he's growing up, and I was just reflecting a bit on, well, it's cliche, but time flies, that first 10 years. I've been there for every moment. First day of school, he plays guitar, his first gigs, I've been there for all of it, and he's just an awesome kid, and I'm extraordinarily proud, and I'm proud of the choices and decisions I've made that were not easy at certain times. So I guess the point of all this, it's about choice and decision. This decision to move to London, I'm so grateful for, but I thought I was going to be a rock star, and that was kind of ego-based. It was really about facing up to the things I was running from. There was also a lot of grief involved in that, unprocessed grief. So my dream of becoming a rock star wasn't what I actually needed. It was what I wanted. What I needed was to become a father, which is just the most fulfilling thing in the world. Far more fulfilling than, perhaps fame or rock stardom. So yeah, that's a bit of my story, and I'm just hitting the Autobahn now, so it's probably best I wrap it up here. Eyes on the road as I get on the German Autobahn. But I don't have a huge number of subscribers here on YouTube, but I'm just drawing what I can from my lived experiences, and I hope I can offer you something from that. So if you've had a decision that you didn't realize was going to make you live abroad or change the entire course of your life, I'd love to hear it. It's often these small things. It doesn't have to be some big dramatic thing. It's just some small decision you make. But yeah, hit me up in the comments, and I'll be doing more videos like this, diving deeper into my story. I don't really have a niche, which is a bit of an issue, but yeah, thanks guys. They say there's no speed limit on the Autobahn, which is true, but it's only in sections. So I'm on a slow part now, and I'm just gonna drive on home.